today. Finally, we can forget the name Belal Muhammad and remember the name Jack Della Maddalena. It's a good day. It's a real good day. Also, what about Valentina Shevchenko, who goes out there and says, y'all must have forgot, as she cruises to a boring decision? Plus, multiple finishes went on in Montreal, Canada. Now, I don't know why I said it like that, but I did. All of that and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy, Matt, and we are here to cover a few things that went on UFC 315. It went down in Montreal, Canada, where in the main event, Belal Muhammad was defeated by your new welterweight champion of the world, Jack Della Maddalena. Let's get into it. Bro, how fitting for Belal Muhammad. Here's the thing, man, about this new generation of the UFC. That guys, old dudes, as I stroke my gray beard, old dudes like myself, who've been watching mixed martial arts UFC for years. One thing about this new UFC, bro, these got to be the weirdest, most awkward game planning fighters ever. The new UFC, look, back in the old UFC, you know what I'm saying, old guard, old UFC, guys knew what their strengths were. They knew what they were doing. They game planned. You couldn't rattle them. You couldn't take them off their game plan. They went out there and they did their job. And if they were bested or if they were beat, then they were just beat. In this new UFC, there's a million factors. There's a million factors that throw these fighters off because a lot of the newer fighters, frankly, are goofy. Just goofy fighters. Just goofy fighters. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about Belal Muhammad. Belal has been sitting out there for years. 4 years. Going out there, and other than finishing Sean Brady, he's been going out there for years and having these wrestle-heavy, boring fights, which is why a lot of people never wanted to remember the name. They didn't want to remember him all, but he's been going out there having these boring chess match fights, but he kept winning. But all of a sudden, you're about to go in there with a murderer, with a killer like Jack Della Maddalena. A man whose nose sits sideways. His nose is sitting sideways like Paul Wall, if you know the reference. You know what I'm saying? And you go out there with this homie, and all of a sudden, against a killer like this, who will put you down to the mat with his hands, you decide, this is the time I'm going to choose that I can strike. This is the time I'm going to attempt to be exciting. This isn't a fight in Vegas at T-Mobile Arena. It's this big, huge thing. This is not like this big deal, an overseas card or anything like that. This is in traditionally the place, and this is no disrespect to my Canadian fans, but this is in a place that traditionally the UFC doesn't bring the best card, right? This is where you choose, you're going to take a stand, and you're going to stand up and fight Jack Della. And didn't try to start shooting for takedowns or truly grappling until like the 4th round. And you deserve every bit of this loss, Belal Muhammad. You deserve every bit, and now I hope we can finally forget the name. You deserve every bit of it. You know what I'm saying? You're going out there with a traditional stand-up guy who has really good takedown defense. Give him that. Has good defensive grappling. Give Jack Della that. But all you had to do was your same boring Belal Muhammad game plan. That's all you had to do. But when I talk about this new age of UFC fighters being goofy, this is what I'm saying. Well, you want another example? Funkmaster, you know what I'm saying? Aljamain Sterling goes out there and decides he's just not going to completely wrestle Sean O'Malley. He wants to take the time on the feet. Are you sure about that? Did that work out for you? No, it did not. Because this new age of fighters are goofy, bro. goofy. You can rattle them. You can get in their head, make them think, oh, I'll stand with you. People think I won't stand with you. I'll stand with you. Well, you tried to stand with him and you lost your belt. So that's what it is. Shout out to Jack Della Maddalena. He goes out there. He handles Belal Muhammad. He handles Belal Muhammad. His takedown defense, his grappling defense, everything was on point. He goes out there, he puts them boots, he puts them hands on Belal Muhammad. Sliced open his lip, busted up his face, made sure that we won't see him at least to the end of the year by the time his whole head and face heals up. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you, Jack Della, because we're not looking to see Belal Muhammad again. And I'm upset that I had to pick this dude to win that fight. I'm not upset that he lost, because I didn't want him to win, but everything in my brain told me he was going to win, because I thought this mofo was going to stick to his normal game plan that he always does and bores us to tears, bores us to sleep. And he decides he's going to go out there and stand with Jack Della. I'm glad he lost his belt. Thank you, Jack Della. We got a new welterweight champion of the world. Now, let's talk about what's on the table. What's on the table? So now that goofy Belal Muhammad lost his belt, enter Islam Makhachev. You know what I'm saying? Islam Makhachev. The UFC is teasing, they are touting that Islam Makhachev, who has said he is not vacating his lightweight championship, which I suspected if he goes out there and wins the welterweight championship that he will, but he's a smart businessman and he hasn't relinquished it yet. Islam Makhachev is moving up to 170 pounds. Nothing new here, no surprise, and he will now face Jack Della Maddalena for the welterweight championship. With that being said, no contracts have been signed, no bout agreements have been signed, but this seems to be where the UFC is leaning, and Jack Della said, bring it on, because Jack Della, the man whose nose is sitting sideways, he ready. Now, I don't know how well he will fare against Islam Makhachev. I'm not trying to debate that right now. We'll get into that later on if they end up signing this fight. But the best thing about Jack Della going out there and winning this fight is look at all of the new life he is now injected in the welterweight division. So now we're probably going to get Jack Della versus Islam Makhachev. But we also have Jack Della. Like, look at this mix at welterweight now. Okay? Islam Makhachev, Jack Della, Shavkat is still there. Ian Machado Gary is still there. Buckley is still there. Ode Usman is still lurking. I kind of wish he would just kind of ride off into the sunset, but Ode Usman, Kamaru Usman, he's still lurking. You know what I'm saying? You've got a lot of people lingering around at the top of welterweight. Sean Brady is still there, bro. Let's not forget what we saw a few months ago or a month ago or whenever Sean Brady won his last fight. He's still there. Welterweight just got popping. It just got interesting. I'm ready for it. You know, we will see how it plays out between Jack Della and Islam Makhachev, but there's numerous matchups after that. And we still waiting on Shavkat to come back from his leg injury, knee injury. We're still waiting on him to come back. So this is going to be outstanding. This is awesome. I'm all for it. Yes. Anyway, let's move on. Co-main event. Valentina the Bullet Shevchenko goes out there and rides a 5-round decision and defeats Manon Fiorot. Man, this was an interesting fight in the sense of, to be honest with you, Manon didn't do anything that I thought she was going to do. Manon went out there and tried to be D1 Fiorot, you know what I'm saying? And she wasn't really super successful at the wrestling as far as scoring and doing damage, which is why she lost the fight. But she was successful in just going that route, game planning that, and going that route and just holding Valentina up against the cage for multiple rounds. And had she tried to do real damage to Valentina while holding her up against the cage, she'd be the new flyweight champion of the world. But What she did though is she did neutralize Valentina and keep, holding her up against a cage, just hossing her, just a hoss, and just holding her up against a cage. But the issue is, she didn't score enough damage. It was right there for the taking. It was clear that Valentina was not equipped for this game plan of Fiorot, and had she just scored more shots, did more damage, she could be the new flyweight champion of the world. Because the first round, definitely, and for parts of the second round, Valentina was piecing her up on the feet. Valentina was piecing her up on the feet. The jab looked great. The jab busted her nose in the first round. Busted Manon's nose in the first round. You know what I'm saying? Valentina was looking solid on the feet. And I will also say, like, Manon didn't have, like, she looked flat-footed. Like, she didn't have that bounce, that spring that she normally has in her stand-up. She didn't have that. She looked very off balance and very flat-footed. And she wasn't really, she wasn't really swinging with a lot of power. She didn't utilize as many kicks as she normally does. I mean, she did use that body side kick, but not to the effect that she normally does. I don't know if she had some sort of an injury coming into this fight or what, but she seemed to be very flat-footed. And maybe she did have some sort of an injury or some sort of an ailment, and that's why she chose to have more of a grapple-heavy, almost wrestle-heavy approach to this fight. But wasn't the most action-packed fight, but, I think that Fiorot lost that for herself. Had she just, she could have utilized the same game plan that she did, but did more damage up against the cage. At one point she drug Valentina down to the ground, and Valentina's back was somewhat up against the cage, but she was on the floor. It was your chance to score that damage, and she wasn't. She was just holding Valentina there, and that was just really weird. Really weird. Like I said, cost herself the flyweight championship, and now we move on. And things got very interesting. Things are getting a little bit more interesting at flyweight. Because, of course, the UFC, Zhang Weili is on her Instagram. She's sharing videos of Valentina and Valentina's win and everything. That fight is right there for the taking. The UFC could pull the trigger on that at any time. Now, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts going on in the UFC because they're trying to ink this new deal. They're done with ESPN. They're trying to ink this new deal, probably going to go to Netflix. And a lot of people are touting or believe that the UFC is saving a ton of their major fights for when they start broadcasting on Netflix. So you might not get John and Tom until then. John Jones and Tom Aspinall, You might not get Valentina and Weili until then. You might not get a lot of the major fights you want to see until then. Obviously Jack Della took a lot of damage, so he's not going to be able to make it to International Fight Week to fight Islam. So you might not see those two lock horns until later on when the UFC is going into this new deal. Because anytime you start on a new streaming platform, you want to hit with a bang. You want to kick it off with a bang. You know what I'm talking about? So all of these fights that you holding on to, that you saving, you're probably going to drop them around then. But it's clear to me the big money fight is Zhang Weili versus Valentina Shevchenko for the flyweight championship. That's a big money fight. But hold on. Let's skip around before we get into a sad fight. Alexa Grasso loses to Natalia Silva, Natty Ice. Natty Ice has just beat the number one ranked flyweight in the world. That enters her into the chat. I think the way the UFC is going to go, unless there is some sort of a hiccup in making Weili and Valentina Shevchenko, I have a feeling that Natty Ice is right there. And as long as Natty Ice doesn't JoJo Calderwood her title shot and take another fight in between now and then and lose and then not make it back to the title shot, shout out to JoJo Calderwood, it's like, bro, That's gonna be a good fight either way. Natty Ice versus Valentina, Natty Ice versus Zhang Wei Li. I'm not saying she would win either fight, but Natty Ice handled Alexa Grasso. Alexa Grasso had to go through 3 embarrassing rounds of nothing. She couldn't do anything to Natty Ice. Now, Natty had a very evading style, moved around, just stuck and moved, stayed on her back foot, stayed on her bike, pedaled her way around the octagon. And went, I mean, it wasn't the most action-packed fight, but she deserved to get that win. Alexa Grasso didn't really, Alexa Grasso needed to bum rush the pocket. She needed to rush the pocket. Yeah, you might get kicked in the face a few times, but you're already getting kicked in the face. You know what I'm saying? You're already getting kicked in the face. So it's like she needed to bum rush that pocket and really lay those hands on Natty Ice. And I know Natty Ice kept evading left to right. I'm moving left, stuck you. Now I'm moving right, stuck you. But there were points in the third round where Alexa Grasso finally just got tired of it and bum rushed her and had a little bit of success. She needed to do that earlier in the fight. Nevertheless, Natty Ice, Natalia Silva goes out there and gets the win. How about the sad fight? Jose Aldo goes out there, loses to Ariel Helwani. Zahabi. Sorry. Y'all know he looked like Ariel Helwani. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know he does. But nevertheless, Jose Aldo goes out there, loses a 3-round decision to Ariel Helwani. You know what I'm saying? To Ariel Zahabi. You know what I'm talking about? Bro. Shout out to Zahabi. Shout out to him. He had moments where he looked like he was going to wilt under the pressure that is the featherweight GOAT, Jose Aldo. But at the same time, bro, that man looked solid. Zahabi looked solid. He brought the intensity. He brought the pressure. And when the going got tough and Jose tried to get him out of there and was throwing wild knees and strikes in the third round, he weathered the storm and he fired back and he put it on. He put it on a fatigued, gassed Jose Aldo. There was all type of wild controversy. Jose could not make the 135-pound bantamweight limit. You know what I'm saying? Being 136, I guess he could not make that. Hits up Zahabi in the middle of the night when they're cutting weight. He's like, yo, I'm not going to be able to make it. Zahabi's like, yo, I respect you. I don't want you to, I don't want you to have this blemish on your record of missing weight. We'll take this up to featherweight. We'll both come in closer to 145 and we'll fight. How about that? And then Zahabi goes out there and gets the win. And then afterwards, Jose Aldo hung up the gloves. He retired. He said his body couldn't handle the weight cuts any longer, and he just didn't have that urge. He didn't have that killer instinct that he used to have. So he walks away from the sport. First off, let's say shout out to Jose Aldo. I've always been a huge Jose Aldo fan. Jose Aldo and Anderson Silva were two of the fighters that really, really just captured my heart, everything I love about mixed martial arts. Those two men were two of the original fighters that I began to follow, and it really paved the way for this. Shout out to Jose Aldo. He's already a Hall of Famer, but shout out to him, man. And it just is what it is, and you gotta commend fighters that are willing to admit, I just don't have it anymore, and I don't want to keep going out here and taking this punishment. So shout out to him. Shout out to Zahabi as he goes out there. He gets the win. Ariel Zahabi, as I'm going to start calling him. He goes out there. He gets the win, man. Very, very, very interesting fight. You know, Jose was laying in those body shots on Zahabi the whole fight. But there did seem to be a half a step that Jose was missing. So, I do feel like it probably is time to definitely hang up the gloves. Nevertheless, Zahabi moves on, man. He's on a run. He's on a run right now, so we will see where he goes from there. Benoit Saint Denis, he goes out there, has an outstanding performance against Kyle Prepolik. You know what I'm saying? He goes out there, he gets the win in round 2 via submission. That was kind of expected. Mike Malott goes out there, does work against Charles Radke, does work against Chuck Buffalo. Chuck Buffalo's been talking mess for the last few weeks, serving Canada, had all these mean things to say about them. And as that kept playing out, a lot of the times you see a fighter doing that, and based out of the reaction of the hometown fighter, you can kind of see like, oh man, this hometown guy's about to go out there and get waxed, right? That wasn't the case with Chuck Buffalo. As he kept talking trash about Canada and throughout fight week and, at the media day and everything, at the weigh-in, Mike Mallet was not phased. He never looked like he wavered. He never looked like he was phased at all. And I thought, yeah, he's definitely going to go out there and get the win. And he does. He goes out there, he gets the finish, KO, outstanding, great on the post-fight speech, outstanding. How about Jasmine Jazz the Vicious goes out there and defeats Jessica Andrade, former champion. Personally, I think if you didn't, I don't know what's wrong with you. We all saw this coming. Jessica Andrade is pretty close to hanging it up, and she should. There's no need to keep going out there and taking these losses and tarnishing your legacy. So, Jasmine goes out there and gets the win. Shout out to her. She moves forward. Anxious to see where she's going to be ranked now. Ion Cutelaba, I felt like he kind of, I'm not saying he got robbed, but I felt like he should have got the split decision win over Modestas Bukalkas, who actually won the fight via split decision. I believe that Ion Cutelaba did more damage, scored a little bit better in the fight, but the judges gave it to Bukalkas, and that's all good. Navajo Sterling goes to a decision win over Ivan Arslan. I was actually expecting Sterling to get a finish here. He didn't. He looked pretty good. He used a lot of wrestling, a lot of grappling in this fight. He said he had been working on that, and that's kind of what he used. But I kind of expected him to go out there. I thought they kind of set him up to go out there and get a finish. But Arslan's tough, man. He's tough. And it got rocky there in the third round. And, he got to the point he was waving Sterling on, calling him out right after he had gotten rocked. But he's tough, bro. Sterling couldn't get him out there. I expected him to, but he couldn't. Marc-Andre Barriault goes out there and makes short work of Bruno Silva. Again, another fight. Even though he was on the 3-fight losing streak, you should have known what you was about to see. Bruno Silva just don't have it anymore. He don't have it anymore, and he should just stop, bro. Because he's not only losing fights, but he's losing horribly. Like, he's getting knocked out. He's getting submitted. It's just rough. It's just rough, bro. And he's losing badly. And it doesn't take much of a shot to put him down. You know what I'm saying? So, if I was him, I would also think about hanging it up. I haven't checked. I'm not a big follower of him, so I haven't checked to see if he said this might be it, but it should be. And regardless, I think the UFC's going to cut him anyway. But nevertheless, Marc-Andre Barriault had a tremendous emotional post-fight speech. You could tell been weighing on him heavy, taking all these losses, and you could tell he really locked in and went out there and got the win. Man, it ended up being an interesting card. Was it the greatest card? No, but it had a lot of finishes. It had some action moments, and it was pretty good, man. But the best part is we can now forget the name of Belal Muhammad, and Jack Della Maddalena is your new welterweight champion of the world. And we will see if they make the Islam Makhachev fight. Nevertheless, guys, let me know what you thought about this show. Please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know, did you see the main event playing out that way at UFC 315? Did you see the co-main event playing out that way? Let me know what you guys thought. And once again, I do want to thank you. For joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time.